Good afternoon. We'll do this presentation in English so that V can understand it as well. I want to help you out with a little assessment, since that we now cannot meet on the physical terms. I want to give you an assignment so that help to continuation of your progression, so that you keep working on yourself and you keep building a better rugby player. What I've learned over the years working with the junior academy and senior academy is that the most successful players tend to be the players that are in a program for long term and have a high attendance record. So if they attend a lot of practices, there's a lot of physical adaptation. Every training they get a small micro adaptation, and by stacking those micro adaptations over a long period of time, say a year or a year and a half or 2 years, they get the most beneficial effects and they get the most out of it. So it's all becomes the goal of sticking in a program as long as you can, but we need mental capacity to stay in a program for a long time. So that's why I want to give you this exercise to help you out to increase your mental capacity and increase your ability to stay in a program for a longer period of time. So what you need to stay in a program for a longer time is motivation, but we can go in depth in how to increase your motivation or what motivation is over a later period of time. Just for now, it's important that we realize one of the most fundamental aspects of motivation is that we have pressure and we have stress. The saying is pressure creates diamonds. So pressure is something that helps us. It helps us to excel. It helps us to improve, and it helps us to push forward. Stress is usually it comes to outing when the pressure increases so much that it becomes crippling, or it blocks a player up. It makes a player incapacitated to move forward. Pressure and stress are both perceptions of a player at any given time. So somebody can feel pressured or can feel stressed, even though the actual load or actual question of that is asked of the person might be that high. Yeah, so some people get stressed out by doing 1 extra practice a week, and some people feel only pressured doing 6 or 7, 8 extra sessions a week. So it's purely up to the interpretation of the individual. This because all parts of life or everything somebody's going through are included in our evaluation if something is pressured or stress. So what I want to talk to you about today is carry load, the ability to carry load and your strength to carry. Yeah? So your Draagkracht, your Draaglast. What is expected of me to carry? Your Draaglast. And what can I, at this moment, keep up? Een Draagkracht. Yeah. So what I learned talking to Paul Lammers, one of the most renowned SNC coaches of NSC and NSF. He's done a lot of work with national volleyballs. He even did the Lady Sevens program for a while. Is that everything nowadays is about sprints. What he means by that is that he started out his career 20 years ago working with long-term programs. Working to increase the capacity of an athlete over a period of 2-3 years, but life's just too complicated to put in a 2-year or 3-year schedule. So a lot of things happen which make people fall into or fall out of schedules. For instance, like Corona, we started out this year without restrictions, and now we are faced with restrictions. They come from exterior point of view, but we are still faced with it. So what we need to do to be a successful program is that we need to sprint, so do short bursts, reevaluate, set a new goal, and sprint again. Short bursts, reevaluate, set a new goal, and sprint again. So this way we keep agile, we also keep robust, and we also to face adversities. So my exercises today are about mental sprints. Yeah? So doing this 5-step program will grant you a mental sprint. So you can sprint, set a new goal, make progress, reevaluate, set a new goal, make progress, etc., etc. So you gain the capacity. Sometimes the light of the classroom drops out. You gain the capacity to sprint on the mental side of things. So what I present to you is this simple 5-step program. Yeah, and through of those steps, you will give a digital form that help you to do those parts. And I will go into depth of 2 of those steps. So the first thing, and again, you will receive a form to do this, is you start to list what are energy givers and what are energy drainers. So what takes energy out of you and what gives you energy. Simply put, what puts energy in the battery and what takes energy out of the battery. Yeah. Sometimes they can be both. For instance, practice takes energy away, but can also give energy. And then you just list it on the side, what is the biggest? Is practice a more of an energy giver or more of an energy taker? So the second part of the STEP program is you start to identify this, and you do this by a questionnaire, which I will send to you. You identify your coping style. And what is your coping style? Is that the behavior you show the minute you are under pressure. So when pressure starts to increase, we start to have some behaviorism that is more favored. The behavior that is more favored is your coping style. Yeah. So if you identify your coping style, every coping style, there are 7 we talk about today, and every coping style has a benefit and a negative side. So one is not better than the other. It's just in some situations, one is more beneficial than others. And in other situations, some things are more negative than others. Yeah. So the third step is you start to scale. Now you know your coping style, you start to scale. Okay, am I in balance or not? Is my carrying capacity better than my carrying load? Yeah. If this is not the case or is the case, okay, now you can write a goal, set a goal, to either increase it further or to balance the situation a little bit more. And after you set your goal, you do a sprint, you try to execute your goal, and then you evaluate. And then your evaluation progress ends with making a list again, identify your coping style, maybe change, maybe it stay the same. Then you scale, where's the problem? Yeah, you start to measure, okay, is this okay or not? Then you set a new goal. And after you set a new goal, you evaluate. So you sprint towards your mental progression. Coping styles. I already told you there were 7 of them. I'm going to try to explain every 7 of them with a beneficial side and a negative side. So first is active. We see this people is that you take a proactive response in solving your problems immediately. So when you're presented with a problem, bam, you solve it. This sounds extremely positive. In Western civilization, we tend to add a lot of value to this to this style of coping. We think these are nice, trustworthy people who solve everything immediately. But they're also negative to the proactive response because these people get stuck, and they get stuck a lot when problems are bigger than their sphere of influence. Proactive people suffer more, for instance, at Corona than others, because they cannot use their proactive response. No. So the second coping style is sedation. So take the edge off, to say it in a more modern sense. Sedation has a lot of risk to lead to addiction. So the negative side of sedation leads to addiction, but sedation can be anything. It can be reading a book, alcoholism, gambling, but it could also be sports, that you use sports to sedate something. So the contents of what you do doesn't really matter as long as you use it to take the edge off. Positive sides of sedation is, for instance, when you get into a highly emotional conflict, people who sedate usually don't take that emotion within their next meeting. So they are sedating people are very good at de-escalating the situation, because they take themselves out of the situation, calm themselves down, and then put themselves back in. So 3, avoidance. Yeah, so you avoid the problem, or you avoid the thing that presented to you as negative. Negative is that problems can grow because they don't get attention. Positive is that a lot of problems we have in our life, our perception of us having a problem, we think we have a lot of problems, but it actually might actually not be a problem. And you also, with avoidance, you create a space for problems to solve themselves. So some things just get fixed by themselves, and people who have avoidance as coping style tend to pick up a lot of those freebies of problems fix themselves. For support is when we are faced with a problem, we start to look for loved ones, people around us to get support. We need to face the adversity. The positive outcome of this, that these people are able to build very strong friendship connections and very strong family relations. A negative side of support is that you become needy. You need your friends to speak to you daily because you need them to help you through the adversity of life. 5 is passive. The passive is different than avoidance. Then with passive, you choose to do nothing. So you acknowledge the problem, but you choose to do nothing. Avoidance is that you don't acknowledge the problem. So passive can mean, okay, positives are you give yourself time to reflect. You give the space to the problem to solve itself. But then on the other end, problems can increase because they're not given any attention. So 6 is the expressive of emotions. So one of the coping styles is these people, we call them, they fly off the handle. They are very expressive with their emotions. They shout and yell a lot to get rid of their problems. What is positive about this this coping style is that these people used to feel a lot of, they don't feel a lot of stress because they get rid of their stress by expressing it. Or of the negative side is that people who are close by these people get afflicted with a lot of emotions. So it's easier for the person to deal with stress, but it becomes harder for the persons around this person to deal with stress because they get faced with a lot of emotions. 7 is comforting thoughts. Well, we know this is that thinking thoughts of, okay, everything will work itself out, everything will be fine in the end, alles komt goed. These sort of thoughts help us to deal with adversity. Positives is that you're able to do it yourself, so you don't need anybody else to get you into a more coping to face adversity. Negative sides is that they coincide usually with passiveness or avoidance. Good. So then the third form you will receive is the scale, where you can put your strengths and weakness in, and then you will end up with sort of an answer. Or are you in balance? Am I in balance? Is my carrying capacity larger than my carrying strength? Or the other way around. And of your skill, you can set a goal. So, hey, for instance, if you know your coping style, you can say, okay, I know that I face adversity by meeting up with my friends. I have to schedule meetings with my friends. Otherwise, I lose carrying capacity in my life. So these were the 5 steps. Try it. If you need any help, feel free to contact me. And of course, I want to give you the best of luck to this. And I hope you are experiencing positive outcomes of your first goal. Stay safe.